Hey folks, look at this beauty. This is a rare MIJ, MIJ, made in Japan guitar that I've never come across before. I've not been going to my local flea market much lately because I've sort of backed off of buying thrashed guitars and fixing them up and making very little money on doing a lot of work, to getting guitars sort of in the raw and doing setups. Seems to be a little bit more profitable. But I stopped in the other day and happened to see this beauty sitting there for $100, and guess what? I had just that amount of money in my wallet, so it seemed that it was destined to be. When I looked at the guitar, first of all, I saw it was a solid spruce top. And it looks like a reasonable select spruce, maybe a Sitka. It's very dark, nice tight grain. Inside, I don't know if you can see that, it says Nashtone. Nashtone model W310, made in Japan. No date. And it's a solid spruce top with a tortoise shell style pickguard. Nice mahogany with a center seam there. Sort of a southwest seam. You can see that. Nicely done. Lovely block inlays on this. Oval block mother of pearl inlays. Sort of cloisonne style tuners with small buttons, which are a little bit different. And there's the headstock. So headstock actually says GTC, and the inside it says Nashtone. And it's a nice sort of rosewood faced headstock, an interesting shape. It appears to have at least a bone nut. The saddle might be plastic. It's fully bound, and I couldn't believe this. I've shopped at this thrift shop or this flea market now for over 10 years. I never pick anything up there that plays like this. I have not done a thing to this. The action is low, it's bright, it's punchy. It's not probably coming through on this camera setup, but it is very bright, punchy. Action is very low. The fret ends are nice. It feels like someone did a setup on this before putting it for sale in there. And I thought I'd take a chance on it. When I got home, I looked up Nashtone, can't find very much at all about this particular company. There was one that recently sold on eBay. There was a different model number. I think it was a 2-something rather than a 3-something. A Nashtone solid top Dreadnought model. It sold on eBay, or it was listed on eBay. I don't know what it. Sorry, Reverb. It was on Reverb. It was listed on there for $522, and it did show as sold. So I don't know if they took a lesser figure or not. But if this thing is, as I suspect, worth as you know, vintage, rare, made in Japan stuff, if it's worth somewhere around $250, $300, or even $350, then it was a good investment for me. Particularly as it came with a nice hardshell case, although it's fairly beat up. But this is really, really nice. It looks like it's got an ebony board on it. It's very, very dark. It appears to be, yeah, it's ebony. So it's got ebony fretboard. Beautiful block inlays. It's the very traditional sort of purfled sound hole, nothing spectacular there. Very Martin-esque. Nice solid top, spruce top. This thing is probably, I would say, 70s, maybe early 80s, but I would say somewhere around 40, 50 years old. That's about the time they were sold, the information that I found anyway. But it's, you know, it's in keeping with a lot of Japanese guitars from that particular era. You know, you have your Nippon Gaki stuff. You have your earlier Yamaha stuff from that era. Some Aria acoustics. And then there's a lot of sort of off-brandy, lesser known Japanese made instruments from that period, some of which are excellent and some of which are so-so. But as you know, at the time in the 70s, Japan was sort of frowned on, or Japanese instruments was frowned on, much like Chinese instruments were 20, 30 years later. But now people seek this stuff out. There are actually collectors that collect Japanese guitars made in this particular era. I have one particularly special one that's made by Kazuo Yari for Alvarez from this era, and it is the Gerakonda rosewood model. So I have had a taste of craftsmanship from this particular era and really like it. So this is a really nice find. I'm really excited to find this, and I'm not sure how many were made under the Nashtone label, or if this was a subsidiary of something larger, probably a shorter run that were labeled much the same as a larger run. So this sometimes happened. You had a block of guitars made. Some of them went to Alvarez, some of them went somewhere else and were labeled differently. This might be that sort of situation. But if anybody has any information on Nashtone or GTC, let me know what you know, because I share with you. You have to share with me now. That's how it works. But anyway, a nice vintage made in Japan guitar. Don't run across that every day. But this is a joy to play. It really is nicely set up. I couldn't believe it. The fret ends are smooth. It looks like the fretboard's being oiled. I'm not used to that at my local flea market, which is an indoor flea market of many, many stalls. And the guitars I usually pull out of there, sometimes ukes, banjos, mandolins, that kind of stuff, are usually thrashed. And I have to do quite a bit of restoration to get them to play. So when this was sitting there, I was a bit nonplussed as to how everybody had walked by it. It seems like a bargain to me for a solid top guitar. So it just sort of fires home the point to me that you shouldn't give up on your local watering holes. Stop by them every once in a while, your local thrift shop or your jumble store, or whatever you call them. Car boot sales I grew up with when I lived back in Blighty. But those kinds of things you should peruse every once in a while. You might find a deal like this, which I was fortunate enough to do. And of course, that's always a thrill to share it with you on a video. So this is a Nashtone W310 made in Japan, I would say around the mid-70s, perhaps early 80s, maybe early 70s, but somewhere in that provenance. So there you go. Great find. If I find out anything more about this guitar, maybe I'll do another video. I'm going to hold on to it for a while and explore it. But anyway, see you folks later.